welcome to the Senior Network.
Senior Provider Network, that's
Senior Provider Network, and thank you for inviting me to speak today. We used to meet a lot more before COVID, so it's good to see some familiar faces and to share what I'm doing now. My name's Bonnie Norby, and I'm now working as the nurse case manager at Sierra Hope. Sierra Hope is a nonprofit, and we're located in Angels Camp. And we have several different programs. I'm an RN, and as a case manager there, I'm working with people who live with HIV in Calaveras County, but also 5 other counties, Amador and Tuolumne, and now we've added Alpine, Mono, and Inyo counties. So we've been accessing telehealth to do that in the winter. The Office of AIDS, California State Office of AIDS, asked us to take on Inyo County, and we decided to do that. So it's a big area to cover. Most of our clients are in Amador, Calaveras, and Tuolumne. As the nurse case manager, I work with our clients, and for this group, I really want to emphasize that most of my clients are over 50.
That is amazing.
And so I had just gotten an exciting email from Kate Lorick, who does the Chronic Disease Self-Management Program, that they're going to update the Living a Healthy Life with HIV program to emphasize aging, because that's the biggest problem right now in the nation, is people with HIV aging. And there's a lot of interesting research being done. They do have sometimes more risk of aging early.
Okay.
So, and there's certain markers that we're looking for. Another misnomer that it is all men who have sex with men, but we have people who got HIV in many different ways. It could be, from a heterosexual partner, and even blood transfusions early on in the HIV, which is an epidemic, and it still is an epidemic. Folks got transfusions and ended up getting AIDS before they figured that out, and now they screen for that, so there's no risk of getting HIV from a blood transfusion. So we have we have women, we have men, we have some young people, but majority over 50, and a lot of them, as we know, as senior care providers, live in rural settings, which as you age becomes harder. Another interesting thing, a lot of them are survivors. They, my oldest gentleman is in his 80s. He lives at a high elevation. I got a lot of people living at high elevation, so they get high snow loads and things like that, but he's thriving.
How long did he, if I can ask, how long has he had the disease?
He's had the disease for quite a while. He got it early on.
That's truly amazing. That
Yeah,
he lived to be
yeah.
80. Wow.
Yeah, in the maybe closer to the 90s. The first drugs that came out were very hard on people, so they can have health conditions related to that. It can even be some of the early AIDS drugs affected teeth, so they may have more problems with missing teeth, and that becomes a barrier. Many of them, my clients at least, are living at below poverty or close to the poverty level. So some of the other programs and what the Office of AIDS nationwide, we have the Ryan White program, which is a program I am under. And that program was that young man, because children were getting AIDS, babies were getting AIDS. For some of the younger folks that don't remember that. So this young man, Ryan White, had AIDS, and it became a national priority to help people with AIDS. So because the AIDS drugs are very expensive, Medi-Cal does pay for it if people are on Medi-Cal, but if they're not on Medi-Cal, or even if they're on Medicare Medi-Cal, sometimes they need help with the medication, and there's a program called ADAP that I'm an enrollment worker, and my co-worker who's in social services does enrollment. And so we can help pay for the medications through that. And that's a state program. We just enroll them, and then they go to their pharmacy, and it helps pay for that high cost of the HIV medications.
So if they're a Medi and they're at poverty level, does that include drugs? Because I know with my Medicare, it doesn't include drugs, so I have to have a separate drug card.
I'm still trying to figure that out. It seems like, you know, each case can be a little different. Like with the Medi now, because they have some programs that will even pay for, you know, the Part D expenses, and if they have any Medigap.
Okay.
So it really is on a case-by-case basis. So we do the enrollment, and then the state decides if, but we have to get all the documentation from people, which sometimes is, you know, it's challenging. We serve for that both for our clients, and if anybody out there knows people who have HIV, we'll do it for non-clients too, the ADAP enrollment. And then we also have a program called HOPWA, which is housing opportunities for people living with AIDS, because people are living at risk right at the poverty level, so we can help with rent, emergency rent, mortgage payments, or utilities for up to 147 days a year. So we work with our clients with that. So I think it's one of the most progressive programs at the Office of AIDS, because AIDS was and is an epidemic. And one of the ways that we stop the epidemic is keeping people on medication and preventing homelessness. So when we do that, when people are on medication, what a lot of people don't understand, these medications have gotten so wonderful that if they get what's called their viral load down, the amount of the HIV virus in their blood, they can have sex without transmitting it to their partner. So this is a wonderful thing. We also have programs for people. We at Sierra Hope aren't doing this program, but we can send people to it. Programs called PrEP. So if somebody who is having high-risk sex, they can take the medication to prevent them from getting AIDS.
And what kind of side effects go along with that?
You know, the newer medications, my clients have very few complaints of side effects.
I just have I guess a love-hate relationship with the whole idea of PrEP, because if I have a partner that I've been with for 20 years and then somehow they get HIV, they're HIV positive, then I would be willing to risk taking a drug so I could maintain my relationship with them. However, I don't like the idea of people taking PrEP so that they can just go willy-nilly and not have any personal responsibility about keeping themselves healthy, because I just think any drug that you take has effects on your body,
Right.
and the least amount you can, the better. And it makes me afraid that people are going to get cavalier about it.
It's
That's
concerning.
my concern.
Because there's a lot of other sexually transmitted diseases, and it was just this morning, they have pretty much a gonorrhea that is resistant to pretty much all antibiotics that's come into Massachusetts. And we've been watching that for a long time. So HIV is just one of many sexually transmitted diseases. So to answer your question, if you have a partner with HIV and they take their medicine and keep their viral load at 0, then you're very low risk for getting HIV. Now the PrEP is for people, and this is a choice for people. Human behavior and sexuality, we all have our own ideas of how it should go. But for people who are out there, this just gives them another layer of protection. If they are having sex with people that they don't know if they've been testing or if they have HIV or not. We've had a couple young people get HIV, so it's still out there.
What is the attitude, of the younger generation towards HIV? Are they worried about it?
I think monkeypox changed it. We've seen it. Because here comes monkeypox, and everybody got concerned about monkeypox. And when they first got at Calaveras County the monkeypox vaccine, they were the first one in our area to get it. And they called me, and I went over and helped give the vaccine the first clinic they had and let all my people know. And most of my people are in steady relationships or, that kind of thing. So, and they know to use condoms. And we have free condoms, by the way, for anybody.
All right.
At Sierra Hope. You can come in, knock on the door, and we have a bowl right at the door. Bring a bag, or we'll give you a bag. You can have all the condoms you want, okay? Because I'm a big believer in safe sex and condoms, not just for for HIV, but for all sexually transmitted diseases. So they're out there. Chlamydia is pretty much epidemic out there, and can cause infertility in women. So, for the younger generations, and older generations are active too. Some of my older people are active. It was interesting talking to them about monkeypox. I had more of a conversation about people's activity. We now have social media and these apps, dating apps. I haven't used it, but where you can hook up with people. So we try to be, I just try to be neutral. People's behavior is their choice. If they're ready for, some education. We also have things called PEP. So if somebody goes out and has a wild night and ends up saying, oh no, I don't know this person that I had sex with, it's post-exposure prophylaxis, and they can go to the ER and get that, and then get HIV tests.
Oh, that's a great resource.
Yeah, so that's available. The urgent care's been pretty good in Angels Camp too. They caught somebody who had HIV. So I was really pleased about that. So We've got hepatitis C out there for the older generation. If you're a boomer, you ought to get tested for it. You know, it can be latent in the population. I had
So
one.
is hepatitis C something that we vaccinate for now?
No, hepatitis B we can vaccinate. I think, yeah, hepatitis B, because when I was a nurse, we were always afraid of needle sticks, and I got them, and because of hepatitis B especially, but they weren't as aware back then of hepatitis C. So, gosh, in somewhere in the 2000s, I got a needle stick. And so I had to take prophylactic medication for Hep C, hepatitis C, and HIV for a month.
Oh my.
Yeah, it wasn't easy because the meds were stronger then. But now these new meds for hepatitis C are wonderful. So, you know, encourage your boomer generation to, you know, and you can do a risk too, you know, but some of them were in that wild generation, so you just don't know.
Why do you say the boomers as opposed to any other part of the population?
Because that is a generation that didn't know that they got hepatitis C.
Okay.
I think if anybody is using injectable drugs, then hepatitis C, any age group.
Okay.
But I talked to one woman who's, you know, more, I'm 63, so she may be younger than me, I'm not sure. Her brother had HIV and died. No, Hep C and died. And she asked her doctor to test her for Hep C, just being
Proactive.
yeah, because everybody probably should. And she had to ask 3 times to get a Hep C test. So it's interesting.
Does Sierra Hope do any testing for Hep C or HIV?
Not anymore.
Okay.
We refer out. In some of the larger areas, we were just not getting the volume of people, and we were just doing a finger prick. And I think if anybody's concerned about HIV and Hep C, they can ask their doctor to run that test along with their yearly tests. So.
Now the Mark Twain blood draws, that doesn't.
No.
There's
There's a new law that I don't know if all ERs are going to do it, but they're going to try to. You have to, if you go into an ER urgent care, you have to opt out not to get a HIV or Hep C test, so that they can try to catch it early. Because in any of these diseases, the sooner you catch it, the better.
Sure.
Like this one person who got HIV they caught it very early just by chance. And so she had a fairly low viral load, but if people have HIV and they don't know it and they live with it for several years, then it can start to impact their immune systems and cause problems. Hep C is in the liver. If it goes on too long where that you actually get an active case of Hep C, it can damage the liver. So what we want to do is catch these infections early. One of the things with HIV, there's a really great Nova episode on it, is that it mutates quite fast. And there's many different mutations out there. So sometimes when they're if you get tested, then they have to test and see what mutation you have. And somebody who got HIV with one mutation could get another. And most of us are getting more educated about that because of the COVID.
Sure.
So the vaccine for HIV they were looking at just failed. And this explained in a really great way, this NOVA, why it's so tough. But it also explained the wonderful work they did with the antiretrovirals and the protease inhibitors that we use in these medications and how they've evolved. So keeping people on medication long term is always hard for any, disease. And if people are living at the edge of poverty, they're less likely to stay on their medications just because of other things take precedent. We learned this with tuberculosis. We're still working with tuberculosis, and that's highly in homeless populations. So, solving the homelessness problem is going to be imperative for all these infectious diseases.
That is a tough solution to come up with.
Right. And we're lucky, and that's why the Ryan White program was so innovative in that it built in help. We do help people with HIV find housing, which Sierra Opa also had some housing assistance programs. Some of that funding is running out, but we do have people to help. We can, send people in the right direction. We have programs where some of my colleagues have taken the Ready to Rent program to help people learn how to find housing. Senior housing, of course, you all know, is a big problem up here. Finding HUD housing where it's subsidized is a 5-year wait period. We also have a transitional living house, and a lot of people don't know this, but it's very limited, and it's for people with children. So that limits us. But our executive director, Jerry Cadoti, is a visionary, so he's always looking for new funding and ways that we can help people.
Can you talk about the transition program a little more? Because I know there's requirements, and you have a
wait. Yeah, there's. Yeah. We have a housing manager, and we have other people working in the housing program, and people basically have to register, and then they're on a list, and the list gives them points. And so then they have to kind of choose from that list who may come into the transitional living house.
And then it's 6 months, is that correct?
No, I think it's 2 years.
Oh, okay.
I may be wrong, because that's not my program, so don't take me. We do have a website, and you can always call Sierra Hope. You can just go to sierrahope.org to find out more, or call. We do have fundraisers throughout the year. We do have, activities and fun events. We're hoping to do that more for our clients again. We used to have more of that. So we're looking maybe a spring fling. And even if there's COVID, then, we're outdoors. So once the weather is good again. But yeah.
And you've got a food program as well, correct?
Yeah, we have a food pantry, and that's open on Wednesdays from 1 to 3. And we're located in Angels Camp, and anybody can come. No age restriction, no restrictions on it. And we're located, you take the old Vallecito Road, and then you go on Booster Way across the creek, And we're in the same facility as the Utica Water and Power Authority. And so, because they have a lot of expensive equipment, it's got fencing and barbed wire, and but Joel Metzger, who is the director for the water company, has done wonderful things. We got new windows, we got a new parking lot, we got a generator if we have power outage. He does a wonderful job. So, you know, so we have freezers, there's meat, you know, whatever they can get.
So do you do some kind of intake for people to, do you do an intake form for people to be able to get the food? Or
no, it's very, very simple. Steve, who does our food program, basically, you know, there's a few categories. Are you male, female? Are you a senior, disabled, veteran?
Is there an income requirement?
No, no income requirement. So, you know, we know that people who maybe have jobs and a high mortgage are having trouble paying for food. I mean, nobody should be feel like there's any stigma to coming to a food pantry. I have to give a call out to Area Bakery up in Murphy's that has the most delicious sweet rolls and breads and things that they donate every Thursday, and then we freeze it for the next Wednesday. There a lot of bread and sweet rolls and bagels, and so we have that, and they do a good job of shopping. So
Steve is really awesome.
Steve,
I have
yeah.
a client that utilizes it, and
he'll deliver if people
usually take her to pick it up. He always thanks me for taking her and stuff, but he's just
oh yeah, and he does this
awesome.
Yeah, he's wonderful. And so sometimes people will call, and he has some people that if they can't get out, delivers, because that's the other thing we find. I wish programs, if I was, you know, if I could be the fairy godmother of programs, or the empress that made programs, transportation, people not having cars, it's a huge problem. Like trying to get people to their medical care, you know, is a big problem. And so sometimes, like you said, you'll drive somebody someplace. Sometimes we'll drive somebody someplace to get to medical care. Some of our people, we have doctors in Calaveras who who are knowledgeable about HIV, so some people go there. More doctors are saying they'll do that. Dignity Health, their doctors can now access a HIV specialist. So some of the doctors who aren't that up on HIV can call them, and they'll review all and say, oh, you need to do this work and this and that. Dr. Kaleda is very knowledgeable, so he's always a resource to me. Tuolumne County, the MACT clinic has a knowledgeable care provider. Amador is our big problem for anybody trying to find even a regular doctor, but so a lot of their people, there's one Community Health in Sacramento that a lot of our people go to. I had a lot of people calling me about sexually transmitted diseases, because I think on some website we're still. So a lot of the Planned Parenthoods in Modesto, Stockton, and Sacramento, if people are looking for kind of comprehensive sexually transmitted disease care, and you can go to your doctor, but some people feel shy about that, or they don't have a doctor. Those are access, and so I made a fact sheet on that to give to people. So, other questions? What's happening out there with your programs?
Well, go ahead, Catherine, we haven't seen you in
I
months.
know, it's been a long time. It's good to be back. I've missed
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah.
We're doing well. We're really busy, home health and hospice. Let's see, geographically, we're still here in Calaveras with no issues. So up the Highway 4 corridor, Copper, over to Valley Springs and Burson. Our Lodi and our Sonora office work together, and so they come so far and we go so far and kind of meet, which is really nice. We are not covering the Groveland area for home health right now just because of staffing. So we are looking for staff. We're looking for nurses, physical therapists, occupational therapists. Hospice is busy, and no changes with geographical changes for them. So hospice is still going over to Groveland as well.
And
so.
they're doing Calaveras and Tuolumne?
Mhm.
And then you don't
Yeah.
go into Amador though, correct?
We do not.
Okay.
No. So, we work really well with the other home health agencies and hospice agencies, and we appreciate them because we can't do it all. They can't do it all. So we do quite often refer back and forth. So.
What other hospice agencies are in Calaveras County?
So I know that for sure Hospice of Amador and Calaveras is here.
What about Bristol or?
I think Bristol comes over here as well. Yeah, in Bristol. Yeah.
And there's one, is Interim, does Interim do hospice? No.
That I don't know.
Okay. I
Yeah.
think there's one more hospice, but Iron Point, would that be it?
And Iron Point, they do have a hospice as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I need to find out who comes up here now. I mean, I know Amador and Calaveras does, I thought Bristol did.
I know
But
Iron
that's
Point
another.
does, because I know a couple people who, they've come,
Who does?
They
Iron
use
Point.
their
Iron Point,
home
okay.
health or hospice.
home health.
Yeah.
Okay.
I tend to look for nonprofits, you know. If
I
people-
tend to look for nonprofits with hospice as well. The unfortunate situation is that just like everybody else, the hospice of Amador and Calaveras is also understaffed, and so there's just not enough of them to go around. And I think all the other ones we mentioned are for profit.
Well, that's part of the housing crisis here. I think everybody is having trouble getting medical nursing staff and
Yeah.
professional staff, physical therapists, occupational therapists. And I think workforce housing, if we have good housing for younger nurses and physical therapists and have activities that they'd be interested in, because a lot of people would like to live in these kind of areas and it's hard for us to have competitive wages.
Right, we have 2 nurses on hold right now that are wanting to come up, and they just haven't been able to jump through that hoop yet, and housing is part
Right.
of it. But that's the other reason why it's so important that we, as a responsible nonprofit home health and hospice, work well with the other hospices and other home health agencies so that we can refer back and forth. It's so important to do that. So we really utilize those other resources,
Right.
including United in Arnold in Amador as well. So it's just really important that we remember who our other resources are and use them, because that is
Right.
an issue. Everywhere, I think, up in the foothills and the mountains, Tuolumne County included.
Yeah.
And we have an aging nursing population too. So like I'm 63 and I'll probably be working because the job I have doesn't require lifting and it's in my specialty area anyway, with public health. So,
It's a
it's
really
something I
nice
can
fit.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in the bigger hospitals, they can have things like lift teams and the Hoyer lifts and all the things. Home health is very hard, because you may have a client that needs, help, assistance in transferring and moving, and you need a good back. And, when I was young, I could do those things. And so, I know that Stanislaus State has a nursing program, and it was associated with Columbia. I think they can do some of their work up at Columbia in Sonora, and Sac State. But we got to we've got to get workforce housing. I mean, for our medical care, So we have doctors who can afford. A lot of them have such high student loan debt that it's not like they're a rich doctor that can just move up and buy a house. So, our hospitals have to start thinking about supporting workforce housing too, along with all our other businesses. Finding senior care aides has been, we've got some clients who need care aides. It's hard. And luckily I got Gail Blanc to help. She knew the system a little better. So, in-home support services for people who are lower income, but it's hard to find them. And they don't reimburse mileage. So if you have somebody out, and we had people outside of, your usual drivable area where you have them, then it's harder to get somebody out there.
I did not realize that. I thought IHSS at least had covered mileage.
They may, not at all, yeah,
Wow,
that's what I was told.
And minimum wage, that's ridiculous.
Well, I was able to use HOPWA funds. We can do gas cards. That's another thing that we can do. I can do gasoline cards and give them to people so they have the gas to get to their medical appointment. So we're creative, and we said, if we need to have a home health person get there, in-home support person, that client can give them the gas card to use. So that was one way we were creative in using that. So
and in Tuolumne County, just so that you know, they have the TRIP program. And are you familiar with that?
No.
Okay, so that program helps to pay for transportation for those who.
Ooh.
Yeah, so you could call. I'm trying to. You could probably call the county, Tuolumne County Transportation Department. Not like the roads department, but they could tell you more about it.
Right. Well, and then we run into people who have vehicles, but they need repairs and they can't afford to repair it. So we have some creative ways that using HOPWA funds, we help pay for maybe utilities and rent for a while so they can save up the money to fix their vehicle.
Oh, that's a good idea.
But like I said, if I was a ferry, I'd have a program for car repair help and for people to get into maybe a used vehicle. So I know we donated one of our older vehicles to a client that lived way out there.
Yeah.
So, and we're not inundated with vehicles either, so.
And I find one of the biggest issues is people needing to go to specialty appointments outside the county.
Right.
That's almost impossible to find somebody who will take them outside the county because.
No.
Is Common
What about,
Grounds,
I was gonna say, what about
their
Common Ground?
Silver Street program, I think, goes out of county now. I would call them and ask them. I thought that they did.
It ebbs and flows with that, there's sometimes
probably
they will
depending
and
on
sometimes they
who
don't.
have to
But I thought-
drive.
And if
yeah.
they have more than one person, I think, going in that same direction, maybe
Yeah.
they will do it or something.
Okay.
But things I'm doing is, I started sitting down yesterday and I'm calling to get speakers for the entire year because I think that it's important for us to get
Right.
the information, and hopefully you're going to start attending this meeting when you can, or somebody
I'm like
else.
every other weekend too,
Yeah,
but
so
I'll try. I'm close.
Yeah. But what I'm finding is, for example, I called Hospice of Amador in Calaveras yesterday and said, we used to have somebody that come, they don't come anymore, blah, blah, blah. Well, that person's like 3 people ago already, so they have yet a new person that I'm going to contact, and then I'm going to ask them to come and present because, again, we haven't seen anything from them. So
Their community liaison, I would think, would come, and I think she's still there.
who is?
Remember her name? Let me think about it.
Jasmine is who I was referred to
Yeah, no,
yesterday.
let me see if I can figure it out while you're
Jasmine
talking.
with a Z, J-A-Z.
Oh. It's right on the tip of my tongue. We've known each other forever.
It
so
wasn't
we love this.
Wendy, the one between.
Yes, Wendy.
Okay, she's gone.
She is?
Yeah, she's been gone for quite some time. There was another person after her.
Oh.
and they're gone too. So anyway, so I'm gonna
Aw.
just start, I think I'm gonna go through and just start contacting all the agencies again and see if we can.
Well, we'd
more
be happy to
people
jump
here.
in the fray, and we can do it I can do it later.
Is
in the
anybody
year.
from public health? Because they got so inundated with COVID, but it seems like they're being able to start to, you know, get some of their other programs and staff going again. And
Well, and I don't even know if Area 12 is, they've been allowed out of the office now, like occasionally, but I'm not sure they're, I don't think they're in the field the way they used to be. I mean, a lot of, COVID shut so many people down, and they told them they couldn't go to meetings, they couldn't do this, they couldn't do that. And in the health arena, even though a lot of it's somewhat normalized again, there's still mask requirements, and there still are some restrictions, so we may still be hitting some of that.
I think what we're seeing really is the hospital-based, like Adventist Health and Dignity Health, are, because we're hospital-based, we are required to wear masks still. But I was at the Tuolumne Miwok Clinic a couple of weeks ago, and it finally dawned on me that I was the only one in the clinic without a mask on. And when I got up to talk to the receptionist, I'm like, are masks not required? And she's like, only if you feel like you need to wear one. I'm like, nope, I don't. So I think that they are starting to relax a little bit, but I think it'll be longer for the hospital-based medical communities to release that mandate. And that has to do with the regulations too.
well,
so.
we still have people who visit the office mask up,
Mhm.
and I've managed several waves of COVID going through our transitional living house and through staff, and I have to be extremely careful because my mom's 86, and
Well, and you tend to have a vulnerable population. coming
yeah,
through there.
they can be immune compromised.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Well, it's
especially
not
if they're
just
not
HIV, that's,
controlled.
you know, I find that there are more and more people that I know that have some kind of immunocompromising disease.
Right.
Well, I
Um,
appreciated how she answered me when I asked, only if you feel like you need to wear it. And I'm like, that just is so comforting for people who are wearing them and people who are not wearing them. I mean,
Well,
it's like
yeah,
so
if you're
neutral
wearing a
and supportive.
high-quality mask, an N95 or a KN95 or a KN94, you can go into most situations for, an hour, couple hours, and feel pretty protected, even if maybe somebody does have COVID. This new strain that's making its way, it's in San Francisco, is even more infectious than any of the others. So you always have to just watch what's happening. And I'm kind of I watch it very closely. And I have test kits, so we all test. And I'll generally wear a mask with clients. And what I've found is that so many seniors haven't gotten the bivalent vaccine, and they don't even know about it.
What is the
I'm in that
bivalent?
I am not in that
vaccine?
elder and don't know about it. I'm in
Me
both
too.
categories.
Yeah, that came out in September.
Is that the latest COVID shot?
That's the latest COVID booster, and while it covers both original COVID and crispy, no.
Yeah.
It covers, the regular COVID, but then it also was targeting the Omicron 4 and 5 strains. And the good news is that somebody who's a virologist who's watching it like a hawk is that it's very protective with this new XBB strain
They're gonna
of
run out
COVID
letters.
that's coming, XBB 1.5, also known as the Kraken. So if you hear those terms. So you may still catch it, but it's protecting people from hospitalization and death. Because we know if it gets into our immune compromised or our elders who, anybody over 80, I think immune compromised. You just do as you age. It's going to protect them better if they get it. And, you know, if you're seeing grandkids and family, you know, you're more at risk. But it's been hard on seniors. It's been hard on my mom. You know, the lack of socialization. And she's not one to get on Zoom.
And I don't think that's socialization anyway. I really don't. I think that's like watching TV. You know, you still got a layer of something between you and the person. It's just different than talking here.
Right.
You
Well, I
know?
even find some people with the telehealth nowadays,
Oh, yeah.
they don't like talking on a screen to somebody. They say that they can't, you know, and even through COVID, when I would talk on the phone to people, it was, I mean, I kind of could pick up on some things, but when I'm there and I'm seeing their reactions, their body language, I mean, even through a screen, it's not the
How
same.
they walk.
How they walk, how they, yeah.
I mean, as a nurse, you know, and I'm afraid even after COVID that medical providers are going to like telehealth. They can be in Costa Rica and seeing people.
Well, and that was coming even before, telehealth was a thing before COVID.
Right.
So COVID is going to definitely help boost that.
Right.
It's really helpful for rural areas for specialists. So, you know, as long as people have their primary care provider, that'll be good. The other thing with COVID is the Paxlovid that's out there. And we have that basically, we can thank HIV because some of those drugs were developed, antiretrovirals and protease inhibitors, because of that.
And what
so
is Paxlovid?
Paxlovid. So you can actually get a free telehealth visit if you test positive for COVID. Talk to a doctor anytime. I think, you know, I don't know if they do it at night. And the doctor will call you. You'll have your telehealth and they'll go through everything. And then they'll call in the Paxlovid if it's right for you because it has a lot of drugs that it interacts with.
Okay.
They'll call it in to, like, you know, your local pharmacy and you can go pick it up for
was
free.
Very helpful for my husband. Our provider ordered it for him when we had it in August. It made me sicker. So, but I react to stuff like that, and
Yeah, so
I just
everybody,
happen to be one of those people who can't take medications like that. I
Right.
can't take the Tamiflu either.
Right.
But it helped my husband get over COVID quicker. and
Okay.
helped
I
him
had a
quicker.
Facebook friend who messaged me, I've got COVID and it's like, you know, it's a 3-day weekend. And what do I do? And so she used the telehealth and she's a nurse and she said it was great. And so her COVID was shorter, quicker, less, you know, symptoms.
Well, I like telehealth for things like, I don't know, I used to get bronchitis quite a bit. So it's just so much easier to do a telehealth visit, go to the pharmacy, pick up whatever, and come home. You know, I'm 10 minutes from the pharmacy. That worked really well until Kelly's decided to leave us, and we didn't have one. So there was one time that I would have called, except for I was too sick to drive to Jackson to go
Yeah.
get medication.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I could have made it into town and back, but I just couldn't get to Jackson, so I didn't bother. But, you know, now we've got a pharmacy here in San Andreas again, so. But yeah, I mean, it took me less time to have a telehealth visit, have them call my thing in, go into town and get it, than it would have for me to go to the doctor's office, sit and wait for an hour, you know, then go in, and then it's just for routine types of things, I think it's really convenient.
Right.
For other situations, I think you're correct. You have to be in the doctor's office. You want them to be able to see you and see your whole body and actually touch you. Oh my gosh. You know? So,
And there's certain regulations too that are, so I'll use home health for example. If it's a telephone visit, it wasn't an actual telehealth visit, they weren't able to get vitals, we can't take that as an office visit we can't take those notes. They have to be able to see them, talk to them, gather their vitals, whether a telehealth, even if the patient is providing the vitals, that's okay, that we can take. But when it's just a telephone call, we can't do it. We came up against that yesterday, and we're trying to figure out how we could work around it. And this is a patient who's bedbound; she can't get to the doctor, and so now we're working with the provider and the family and the patient and our team trying to figure out how are we going to work around this so that we can bring the patient onto services that are needed.
but aren't there some remote, like, reporting things that, I know, like, some people with heart issues, they have a little machine that they hook up to, I'm not quite sure, I'm very vague on this, but then that little machine can transmit the data to their doctor, so do we not have the same thing for like blood pressure?
So they are costly,
Hard.
and I will tell you, so we are using similar equipment for, oh my gosh, I hope I don't get this wrong, CHF
Which is,
and chronic,
Congestive heart failure.
so for
Okay.
CHF and for diabetes. But I will tell you that more patients say no than say yes. It's equipment, it's computer equipment, it's electronic equipment, it's digital equipment, and they're not interested. Or they live in a place where there's no service to be able to have it.
okay, that makes sense.
So we are trying to head in that direction. It's helpful to be able to do that, but it doesn't always work. And mostly it's the elders who aren't familiar with electronics and aren't trusting, and so
Okay.
they don't want them in their home. I don't.
So, no, somebody even with a mobile phone could get onto telehealth.
Yes.
It's better if it's, like a tablet or a laptop, but yeah,
And I help the patient. I set up a patient appointment with their cell phones and with the doctor so that they could see each other. And she had a way to get her husband's all the vitals that the doc was going to need. So I was able to help make that happen. I'd forgotten about that until you just said that. So we do get involved and work with the patients and their providers to try to make those kinds of things happen.
so even if like, and maybe, the IT part of it, having young people that are savvy that could go out in our patient, and provide a person with a larger cell phone that they could use to communicate and do like telehealth would be great. And it would be just something maybe they rent, as part of their
Or tablets, can you
tablet.
make phone calls on tablets now? I think you can,
So
but you go through a different.
I can from my iPad if my phone is like right there. Yeah.
See, I still have a flip phone, but I have a laptop at home, and now at work, got a Zoom camera and all that.
Yeah.
I just have my phone. I have a laptop at home, but I don't really use it that much or whatever.
I can't type with my thumbs very good, or even my fingers. It's like I have to get a bigger pad with a bigger. If
Yeah.
I was going to use a cell phone.
I don't use my cell phone.
I don't utilize
I
it
don't
like
talk a
people
lot
do.
on the phone.
I
I'm just
text
not a
them, but
phone
I'm not a
talker.
big texter. I mean, for a quick communication, hey, I'm on my way. Good, okay. But to do a whole long, I'd rather talk to somebody on the phone than to type out a whole paragraph.
Yeah.
It's like, really?
And it's very different with the young people. They rather have
Oh,
the
yes.
text.
Oh, yes.
So I'm getting there with the texting, but
And we can swipe now to spell out words if you have an iPhone. I'm not, well, I can on my work device too, which is a Samsung. And my grandson, who's 16 now, I think probably a lot last year, or when he was 14 maybe, saw me swiping. He's like, Nanny, really? You're swiping? I was like, I don't do this like you do. Get over yourself. How are things going with you and your program?
They're going good. We have 2 new volunteers. I'm still waiting on one to get the final okay, and then we're going to do a training for volunteers. We're still recruiting for volunteers. All we ask is an hour a week of somebody's time to go out and either call or visit a senior. And we're still looking for clients. We have a little bit of a shortage of male clients right now. So some of our volunteers are still there, but they don't really have a client because I don't have anybody to match them up with. When I first started, I had a lot of male clients, but I don't seem to have them right now. But
I keep trying to have my mom get a senior years, especially now that I'm working,
right,
you know, as a senior peer counselor, and she's just resistant. So have you found ways to break through that resistance, or?
Well, you know, it's something that somebody has to, you know, want to do and stuff. But, you know, we've had a lot of our volunteers, you know, they are with their person for years, and they develop a close, you know, relationship too. And we have our volunteers tell us that their clients will tell them things they won't even talk to their own families about, you know.
Right.
So it's, you know, I volunteered for 4 years doing this, you know, why I work full time and all that. But, you know, I've said I can devote an hour of my time on my way home from work to go visit somebody. And there were days that I had a bad day maybe and I didn't feel like going, but when I make a commitment, I follow through with it. And I went to the lady's house and she said something just off the wall. I mean, didn't even know where it came from. And her and I just had a gut-busting laugh.
Oh, right.
I mean, I was about ready to roll on the floor. You know, it was so funny. And even her daughter came out and she said, that's just music to my ears to hear my mom laugh. And I just turned to her and I told her, thank you. I needed that. And, you know, I get just as much out of it sometimes as the person does. And just to see somebody's face light up when you walk in the room, because you may be the only person they see all week.
Right.
And I look forward to my visits most of the time. There's, you know, sometimes it's a little bit more difficult or whatever, but I look forward to seeing that person, and I like to hear their stories. And, you know, everybody has a story to tell, and sometimes their families are tired of hearing their stories or whatever, and to tell it to a stranger. When I first started, I had a lady that her husband died, and she was like 10 years older than her husband. She told me, I'm a cougar. You know, when I walked in. I'm like, okay. But her family didn't want to talk about her husband anymore, and she did. And so I didn't know him. I just listened and, you know, learned things about her and her life and everything. Well, pretty soon, I don't know how long it was, but she didn't talk about her husband anymore, and she moved on to other things. She just needed to get that out. So to me, an hour a week is nothing to make somebody else's day a little bit brighter. And like I said, it does just as much for me. I mean, I don't do drugs or anything, but when I can make a connection or make somebody happier, that's my high or whatever. I walk away just like, yes, I did it, or I was able to connect or whatever. And I don't judge, I just meet people where they're at, and even if I don't agree with their choices or what they're doing, I try to just listen and, you know, offer some, you know, things to help them to, you know, move on and stuff. So anyway, that's...
Well, I'm really happy to hear that you're getting a new volunteer training going. I may have some clients. They want to do something.
Right.
And a lot of them would probably be there's a few I have in mind.
Oh, okay. Yeah, actually we've gotten a few nurses lately. We have one already on board, and the 2 coming on were nurses. They've retired now, but they still want to connect with people.
Well, I remember Glenna. She did it for...
Yeah. And...
have you talked to Veteran Services as far as getting clients? See if they have anybody?
Well, we've referred some clients to them who are veterans, and they haven't really referred a lot to us. Sometimes they but actually Veteran Services is now a part of Adult Services
Oh,
too.
oh,
So
okay.
we kind of all collaborate, you know, and stuff now too, so.
Great.
But, and then Phil Poblano, I believe his last name is, he goes out and kind of is a connection to veterans and stuff like that. And so if we find out we have a veteran, sometimes we'll connect them up with them to see if, you know, they can qualify for any, you know, additional services or anything like that. So I feel like the programs after the COVID aftermath or whatever, I feel like it's starting to pick up again. And I'm supposed to be talking, I was supposed to do it a couple months ago, and then it fell through, and then I was gone. But next month I'm going to Valley Springs to the health and wellness there. I got connected with Dr. Smart at the hospital health fair, and he seemed really interested
he's
in our
great.
program, and so they want me to come and talk to the facility there and everything. So
Oh, good.
yeah, I just feel like things are starting to pick up again.
Well, and we can have any kind of socialization groups, more of that.
And that is something that, again, Common Ground, I wish they were here. They have a grant with another organization, I don't know who it is, but the whole purpose of the grant is to get seniors socialization. So they will, I'm hoping they're gonna start bringing them to the lecture series and at the Angels Camp Museum. It's the first Sunday of the month, it's $10. But it's always really interesting. So I'm hoping they're gonna be able to bring a group, but they would have been able to, if they do it, they can actually pay for the senior and they can give them transportation.
Oh.
So that's all I know about the grant. It's very high level, so you can call Common Ground and ask more about that.
Or maybe they'll bring somebody and talk about it once it's getting near.
Well, they've already instituted
Oh, they've
it. Yeah,
instituted
it started
it.
in
Oh.
January, from what I understand.
Oh, let's get them to talk about it here.
So, yeah, so
Hey,
anyway, what
if you're over at Common Grounds,
yeah.
come on down.
Well, yeah, so what I'm doing is I'm arranging speakers for the rest of the year, and along with that process, I'm just gonna contact all these other agencies that used to come that don't show up anymore. And I know Common Ground will cap these every other Friday. I think they're somewhat short-staffed as well, but I will encourage them to come.
One of the things I've noticed a lot lately, it seems like especially, is I have people in their 60s and 70s, you know, young 70s, who think life is over. And they don't want to go out. They don't, and yet they were social people before. They owned their own business. They worked in, you know, restaurants. They did all this stuff, but now it's kind of like they don't want to go anywhere or do anything. But then I have some people in their 80s or 90s who are, you know, all go-getters and let's go, you know, do this or that. So it's odd.
It is. I see this in my clients too. The 55 to in their 60s, they're struggling the most, and financially too. A lot of times, and that's a hard time for. And I don't know if it's just the generational or.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I'm like, you're still young. I mean, they're still like, oh, my father was a great example of it. I mean, it seemed like once they hit their 50th wedding anniversary, it's just kind of like I don't know if he kind of gave up or what, but you know, he would just sit there and watch TV all day, and my mom would go places or do something. She'd come home and say, I'm worried about you. And he's like, that's what I retired for. And I would come down and visit, and I'd say, Dad, I said, there's so much more to life than just watching TV, and that's what I retired for.
Oh, if that's what he wanted
That's
to do.
what he wanted to do, so it was kind of like,
Oh,
okay, I'm not gonna sit there and keep forcing you to do something you don't want to do. But and he died at 78. My mom lived 10 more years after that. You know, she was, you know, did Red Hats. She did Weight Watchers for the longest, like 25 years. She worked at, you know, helped, you know, with that. She was still, even up until she died, even her neighbors said, you know, even with all my mom's health problems and stuff, she would get up and do what she had. She'd wrap her legs every day and, you know, do what she had to do because she had severe swelling in her legs and all that. And she would still go down and do chair yoga, you know, in the facility she was at and everything. And, you know, sometimes she would go places and some people would say, well, why do you go there, you know? And she's like, because it gives me something to do, you know, instead of just sitting around doing nothing. So everybody's different, you know, not everybody is a social person, and my
A lot
mom,
of people are connected to their pets.
yes.
I adopted a senior dog, and I was looking for a dog with a temperament to be a therapy dog that could go along with me, I thought, maybe to visit people. And I found him, and he was a senior, and he's just been wonderful for my mom. I mean, my going back to work, having this dog, and I had done some training with him, and that's her buddy. And I find that with a lot of my clients, their pets
Oh,
are
yes.
the most important part of their life.
I have people who tell me that if they didn't have their animal, they wouldn't even get up in the morning because they have to get up to let their dog out or, you know, feed them and all that. But oh no,
And that is a lovely segue to
Animals
the
are
fact we're
huge.
having a Love Your Pet video
Oh.
contest. So I'm hoping that that's something else that you guys can spread with your clients. It only has to be like a 15 to 60-second video. There is a $10 entrance fee. It's a fundraiser for CCTV and Focus, which is a local animal group that works with animal services. So that's this.
All right, yeah.
And seriously, if you guys have clients who can't afford the $10, let me know, I will pay it.
Okay.
It may be several, but that, if they really, especially our elders, you know,
Yes.
if that's something that they want to
You
do
know what,
that, let me
I'd be
know.
willing to kick in some money for people also.
Sure,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it is a fundraiser, we get that, so I'm happy to.
Yeah, because I would donate anyway, so.
but their animals mean the world to them. They're their companion, and you know.
And maybe if they don't have the equipment to take the picture or video, just say, hey, you know, I'll do it. Yeah.
With your cell phone,
Yep.
all you gotta do is use your cell phone.
Yeah,
Yep.
there you go.
I really want to get my clients volunteering more and maybe doing that with each other, because I think that's sometimes the best medicine,
Oh yeah.
is if they go out and feel like they're doing something. So, and it's a big role to manage volunteers too. It's so,
Yeah, we
She
just.
had a good teacher.
You
Yeah.
did. Yeah, it's just the volunteers have to be like 50 and older, and the clients have to be 60 and older and stuff. So that's basically what it is. And then, like I said, they do have to pass a background check and get fingerprinted and everything because they're going out to people's homes and everything. But and that seems to be the longest process that is the delay in getting people to volunteer is going through that, because like one, she's applied a couple months ago and they keep checking, well, what's the status of her background? Oh, it hasn't come back yet, it hasn't come back. Well, come on, people, you know, this
Good
is,
check on it?
yeah, I mean, this is ridiculous, this is getting too long. And I don't like it taking that long or whatever, but, and then we just do a 2-day training, and then the only other thing we ask of them is to attend a meeting, and actually we were doing it monthly, and now we're going to every other month, because it just seemed like, even the volunteers were like, do we have to do this every month and stuff, so we're doing every other month now, and it's just a 2-hour meeting, and we provide the resources, you know, that's available, any new resources that we come up with. So attending these meetings, if I hear something new, I can tell them, oh, hey, you know, we have this now, or we have that now. And it's providing resources to the clients, you know, and stuff too. And I kind of do that when I initially go out and meet with them. I find out if they don't have food. I talk about Meals on Wheels or the food bank, transportation. I talk about Calaveras Connect or Silver Streak. And I find, you know, support groups for people. One lady wanted a Parkinson's support group. I found that for her. You know, find out if they're on Medi-Cal or not, and if they can qualify for it. You know, hey, what about this, or IHSS, you know. So this is helpful, you know, to know of the different programs available. I can say, oh yeah, hey, we have this, we have that, you know.
Right.
And we try to keep our volunteers up to date on that kind of stuff too.
yeah, that's wonderful.
And just a quick reminder about hospice is that if anyone has a family member or friend who's interested or kind of heading in that direction and wants to know more information, we do provide what we call informationals, and I can meet them at their home or at their doctor's office or wherever it's comfortable for them to meet. And just to remember too that hospice is different than home health, but they don't need a doctor's referral. A family member can refer, a friend can refer, a patient can refer themselves.
I thought it had to be
did
the
not
doctor.
know that.
Home health, it does have to be,
Right.
home health, it
But I
has to be a
still thought
provider.
hospice did.
Yeah, but no, not hospice. And then we will on our end work with their primary care provider
okay.
or, you know, if they don't have one, we'll work with our medical director or, you know, we'll figure it out. So we'll work with them on that.
Oh, that
So-
was really good to know.
So just throwing that out there so that you guys are aware and can share that information
Yeah.
as well. If you hear of someone who's like, well, I want to know more about hospice. Oh, let's call Catherine.
Yeah, that's great.
I'd like to know if there's any like caregiver respite programs going on again, or that's just, as a
Area
caregiver
12,
now, more
Yeah,
getting that direction.
Area 12 has some. It's somewhat fluid as it's based on how much funding they get.
Mhm.
So sometimes it seems like there's an income requirement, other times there's not an income requirement. Sometimes I hear, oh, we can do 4 hours a month, other times I hear, you know, it's kind of catch as catch can. So, I mean, it's a place to start.
Okay.
And we do, but for our
your
patients, yeah.
patients.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so the only thing I've got is that after talking about it for, I don't know, 5 or 10 years now, I'm finally getting my senior issue podcast started. So I'm gonna do the first couple of episodes on the 25th of this month, and we'll get them up, and I'll get out links for you guys. And,
Awesome.
Okay.
I'm hoping that, well, my plan is to not just focus on hip replacements and diabetes and depression, but also celebrate seniors. You know, there's the Tai Chi instructor at Murphy's is 81 years old, and she's the instructor, and she's amazing. Look at her body movement. She is so fluid and so flexible,
Wow.
and her balance. It's just truly amazing to me. So I want to celebrate the people that are doing that. I also want to bring in issues like people that are working after 65. Why are you working? Why am I working after 65? Because I'm not ready to stop yet is part of the reason, but the other reason is I don't have enough money to retire.
Right.
I have enough money to pay my bills, but my life would be pretty small if I didn't work and bring in extra income. But then there's people that are not in my situation that are, you know, 70 years old, going strong and running businesses and could have retired 20 years ago if they wanted to. So I'd like to bring, you know, why are you still working? So, you know, there's a lot about aging that we can talk about and
I think a lot of it has to do with income. You know, they don't have enough to retire on if they retire, or that, you know, even with Social Security, the longer you work, the more money you're going to get at the end versus, you know, if you retire earlier,
that's true.
you're not going to get as much or whatever.
And those with health concerns,
Health concerns.
start having problems. But even people who can afford to volunteer,
Right.
but there is a greater need for seniors to have jobs. So age discrimination is an issue, you know, that we can look at too. I had somebody just talk about feeling kind of discriminated against because of age. Because our county, Calaveras, I think we're 29% over 65 now. We may be the workforce, and we
Yeah,
may.
we are the workforce, that's true. I hadn't thought
Well,
about
that my boss is starting to feel that way. Who shows up?
Yeah.
We're going to have to look at too. I've always thought this county survived on volunteers, but they could retire and afford to volunteer. So now so many can't afford to volunteer, we're gonna have more trouble getting volunteers.